In 1910, 7 men boarded a train under false identities. Their destination? Jekyll Island. Their mission? To concoct a plan so cunning, so diabolical, it would alter the financial landscape of America forever. Who were they? Let's meet the culprits. Nelson Aldrich, a senator with deep ties to Wall Street. Think of him as the puppet master with a penchant for pulling strings. His family connections would later give us the Rockefeller dynasty. Abram Piatt Andrew, Assistant Secretary of the Treasury, and a man who could balance the books but not his conscience. Henry P. Davison, a partner at J.P. Morgan. You know, the guy whose job description included own the world. Paul Warburg, a German banker with a thick accent and thicker ambitions. He's the brains behind the scheme, or so they thought. Frank Vanderlip, president of the National City Bank of New York, here to ensure the little guy stayed little. Benjamin Strong, representing J.P. Morgan's private banking interests, a master of whispers and backroom deals. Charles Norton, president of the First National Bank of New York, because no conspiracy is complete without representation from big money. Together, they represented 1/4 of the world's wealth, so naturally they thought they were qualified to decide how money works for everyone. Gentlemen, let's cut to the chase. The economy is like a cow. It needs milking. And who better to hold the bucket than us? But first, we need a system that guarantees we control the flow of milk and cream. The American people are like sheep. They trust us because we wear suits and say words like trust and stability. It's time we gave them a system that benefits us. Any objections?
Brilliant. Shall we call it the Banker's Paradise Act? Or is that too honest? The key is centralization. A single entity controlling the money supply ensures stability, or at least the illusion of it. We'll call it the Federal Reserve. Sounds government-run, doesn't it?
Perfect. The public will never suspect it's a private cartel. We'll sell it as a solution to bank panics, even though we've engineered most of them ourselves.
And when the government needs money, they borrow from us at interest. The taxpayers fund the system, and they'll think it's for them and we profit. A perpetual cycle of dependency. Genius. They'll never suspect it's a cartel.
Let's clarify something. The Federal Reserve is no more federal than Federal Express. And those reserves, well, they're about as real as unicorns. What these men designed was a central bank controlled by private interests, a system where profits were privatized and risks were socialized. In plain English, they win, you lose. The Federal Reserve wasn't about protecting the economy, it was about controlling it.
Here's the beauty of it. We print the money, loan it to the government, and charge them interest. It's like selling someone their own shoes at a premium.
And when they can't pay, we'll bail them out with their money. The taxpayers will foot the bill and they'll thank us for saving them. And don't forget the fractional reserve system. For every dollar we hold, we can loan out 10. It's like selling air, but more profitable.
Won't this eventually lead to inflation? Printing endless money isn't exactly sustainable. Won't they catch on eventually? I mean, this is blatant robbery.
Please, Andrew, have you met the average voter? They're too busy arguing over the price of bread to read the fine print. Besides, we'll have the media on our side. In the long term, we're all dead. Let the future generations deal with it. For now, we control the narrative and the money. Here's the part where you realize this isn't just a history lesson, it's a blueprint. What these men devised wasn't just a banking system. It was a mechanism to consolidate power, control the economy, and ensure perpetual debt. Oh, and did I mention they did all this under the guise of preventing financial crises? Irony, thy name is Federal Reserve. They weren't entirely wrong. Inflation did come, but so did wars, recessions, and bailouts, all conveniently requiring more loans, more printing, and more debt. The Federal Reserve became the lender of last resort, a fancy term for kingmaker. And who paid for all this? Take a wild guess.
We'll divide the country into 12 districts, each with its own reserve bank. It'll look decentralized, but trust me, we'll pull the strings from one central board. The gold standard is a leash. If we want true power, we need fiat money, currency backed by nothing but trust.
And when trust runs out, we'll just print more. The public won't care as long as they can buy bread today.
And to sell it, we'll tell them it's to stabilize the economy. Never mind that we're the ones who destabilized it in the first place.
Gentlemen, here's to the Federal Reserve, a system so complex even Congress won't understand it.
And to the greatest con ever pulled, convincing the public we're their saviors while quietly draining their wealth.
And thus the Federal Reserve Act was born, passed in 1913, just 2 years after this little beachside conspiracy. They called it a solution to financial instability. What it really was the beginning of perpetual debt slavery. But hey, they gave it a nice logo, so it must be legit, right?
But what about gold? Shouldn't the dollar be backed by something tangible?
And when inflation kicks in, we'll blame it on anything but ourselves. Supply chains, wars, bad weather. Pick your excuse.
Now let's pull back the curtain for a moment. While the men at Jekyll Island were the architects, they weren't just working for themselves. Behind the scenes, they represented the titans of global finance. Henry P. Davison was J.P. Morgan's emissary, ensuring the Morgan Empire's interests were woven into the Federal Reserve's DNA. Nelson Aldrich? He was the Rockefellers' political muscle, their inside man in Washington. And Paul Warburg? He carried the blueprint of European central banking, with whispers of Rothschild influence embedded in every detail. These families didn't just participate in the game, they owned the board. The Federal Reserve was their crowning achievement, a system designed to protect their wealth, expand their power, and consolidate control. And the beauty of it? Most Americans had no idea they just handed the keys to their economy to a private cartel. So here we are, over a century later, still feeling the effects of this grand scheme. The Federal Reserve isn't just a relic of the past. It's a living, breathing machine designed to funnel wealth upward, keeping the elite in power while the rest of us chase crumbs. But don't take my word for it. Follow the money. Ask yourself, who really benefits when money is printed out of thin air? And who pays the price? Think about it, or don't. After all, ignorance is bliss, right? Inflation is taxation. Ponder on that. If this video made you question everything you thought you knew about money, hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to wake up. And remember, the first step to freedom is understanding who's holding the keys.